Ah, fools. They thought you were just noise in the static, a misplaced spark in a dead circuit, a background glitch not worth noticing, until the system started burning and they saw your silhouette in the smoke. The same fools who once scoffed at your silence now scramble to decode every word you said in passing. They can't sleep anymore. They see your mind in their nightmares, not because you were loud, not because you were violent, but because you were precise. They finally realized you're not just clever. You're the anomaly that rewrote the laws of their illusion, the contradiction that made logic weep, the villain they created, then failed to contain. And now, it's far too late for containment. They labeled you the misfit, the anomaly, the broken piece. But broken things cut deeper when sharpened by betrayal. You watched them laugh, mock, underestimate, and you smiled with your mouth closed and your mind wide open. Every insult, a blueprint, every dismissal, a chess move. They thought they were kings. Turns out, they were pawns on a board you folded into origami and set on fire. It was never about brute force. It was about watching them dance to the music you composed in shadows. You never needed applause. You needed silence. And when it came, you moved like a ghost in glass, invisible but shattering everything beneath the surface. They don't even remember when they started losing. But now, loss is the only language they understand when they whisper your name. They're sitting in boardrooms and bedrooms now, rewatching memories like surveillance tapes, wondering where they went wrong. But here's the truth. They didn't go wrong. You went right. Too right. You crafted a version of yourself so boring, so harmless, they didn't see the scalpel in your smile. And now, they're bleeding possibilities they never imagined. They thought villainy looked like rage. They didn't realize that true chaos wears silence like armor. You didn't explode. You infiltrated. You planted seeds of doubt, like whispers in a hurricane. And now they're drowning in the storm they pretended you couldn't summon. They thought they were playing poker while you were playing chess. But no. You were building the table, dealing the cards, and scripting the outcome before they even walked into the room. You didn't scream when they stabbed you. You documented every wound like a patient biographer. You remembered every eye roll, every time they spoke over you, every time they mistook your silence for weakness. You didn't lash out. You laid low and let the rot spread. You knew what they never learned. The most dangerous person in any room is the one writing the script while others fight for the spotlight. And oh, how beautifully you wrote it. Each act darker than the last. Each scene a trap dressed as a gift. They never saw the strings, only the dance. But now the dance floor is caving in, and you're the only one walking away without a scratch. People love to worship the phoenix, but they forget what the fire burns before the rise. You didn't just rise. You designed your ashes. You timed your rebirth. And when you returned, you didn't scream vengeance. You whispered truths so sharp, they sliced through their delusions. Now they sit in the ruins of their own egos, wondering how someone so ordinary broke their entire structure. But genius has always worn masks, and villainy has always been mispronounced when it speaks with elegance. You never needed fangs. You needed focus, and your focus became fatal to every fragile empire built on ego and assumption. They're starting to connect the dots now. That failed project, you sabotaged it with grace. That team collapse, orchestrated, the meltdown in their alliances, triggered by a suggestion you made 6 months ago, disguised as advice. You didn't destroy them directly. You planted the virus in their pride, and watch them infect each other. Now they whisper your name like it's cursed. Some admire you, some fear you. Most don't know what to feel. Because how do you hate someone who outplayed you so silently, so thoroughly, that your own hands look like weapons forged by their will? They want to call it luck, but you know better. You planned it. You rehearsed it. You became it. You never chased power. You exposed the hollowness of theirs. You didn't scream for attention. You weaponized being overlooked. And now, every fake smile they ever gave you is cracking under the pressure of hindsight. You built your empire from the rubble of their arrogance. No armies, no banners, just strategy, silence, and a delicious patience most will never understand. You're not the villain because you were evil. You're the villain because you were brilliant in a world that preferred stupid rulers. You are the mind they never mapped, the threat they thought they'd buried beneath gossip and grins. But intellect, you see, is not soil. It doesn't decompose. It detonates. And now they want explanations. They want to understand. They want to see the monster they helped create. But monsters don't show up for interviews. You let your results speak. Their failures echo your name now. Their collapsed alliances spell out your method. And their confusion? That's your masterpiece, because they still don't know how you did it. They just know you did. That realization is their torment, and that torment, it's your art. Because you didn't just win. You made them love the game before realizing you designed the board to break them, one by one, silently, elegantly. Every room you once walked in unnoticed, they now reimagine in forensic detail. Who did you talk to? What did you hear? What did you say that they missed? And most importantly, what did you plan? Because now they might see you as something else entirely. A storm disguised as a breeze. A mastermind dressed as background noise. They can't sleep because their memories are now weapons, and you're the ghost behind the trigger. They finally understand what you are. Not a mistake, not a phase, not a fluke, but the villain who walked past them every day, holding their future in the palm of your hand and dropping it without a sound. They called you dramatic once. Now they call you inevitable. And the beauty of it all? You didn't have to shout. You just had to wait. Because when patience partners with pain, it births something divine. An architect of collapse. And they finally realized they were never the architects. They were just blueprints in your masterpiece of destruction. But they still don't know one thing, do they? They think it's over. They think your moves are complete. But the truth is, this was never the grand finale. No, this was just intermission, the silence they're savoring now. It's the stillness before another strike. Because while they scramble to process the wreckage, thinking the chaos has subsided, you've already moved on to stage 2. They think you've retreated. They think you've vanished. But what they don't realize is that you've evolved into something even more dangerous. A shadow with intent. A mind no longer burdened by emotion, only calculation. You're not haunting their past anymore. You're rearranging their future, and doing it with surgical precision. They celebrated too early, raised their glasses thinking they survived your storm, not realizing they were toasting in the eye of it. And you let them. You wanted them to believe they'd escaped, because nothing tastes sweeter than the panic of a fool who thought they were safe. They see the wreckage, but they haven't even begun to understand the design. The alliances you let crumble were distractions. The reputations you shattered were mere decoys. The chaos wasn't a side effect. It was your signature. You didn't walk away because you were done. You walked away to reload. While they count scars, you count seconds. There's a silence that comes before precision, a calm breath before the blade strikes clean. And that's where you live now, in that pause, in that quiet. They don't hear your footsteps anymore, but the ground still shifts. That's the mark of true genius, not just destruction, but the timing of it. Not just strategy, but performance. You never wanted to crush them in front of the world. No, you wanted them to crush themselves, while the world watched and wondered how such giants could fall without force. That's where the real artistry lies, in letting them hold the knife while they bleed, and still blaming the air. You didn't just expose their weaknesses, you engineered them. You knew how to speak to their pride, how to feed their egos like pigs fattened for slaughter. You gave them false victories, watched them parade around wearing crowns made from your discarded plans. And then you vanished, right when they thought they had finally eclipsed you. That's when doubt started to rot their unity. Who had the real plan? Who knew too much? Who might be working with you? You see, the most dangerous war isn't fought with weapons. It's fought with paranoia. And you introduced it to their kingdom like a virus, silent, contagious, and terminal. Their own minds became minefields. The ones who once laughed together now glance sideways at each other, afraid to speak, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. Too loudly, because what if you hear it? What if you're still watching? What if the next collapse has already begun? They tell themselves stories to sleep, that you got lucky, that it was a coincidence, that it's over. But deep down, they feel it. That quiet tick behind every mirror, that second heartbeat in the room. That's you. That's the genius villain they can't forget, can't decode, can't defeat. Because how do you fight something that's already inside? Your vengeance was never explosive. It was invasive. It crawled through their infrastructure, through their rituals, their systems, their secrets. You didn't attack them. You turned their entire reality into a ticking clock, one they couldn't hear until it was too late. Now, every move they make feels rigged. Every plan falls apart in the exact place you once touched. They don't even know how many layers you planted, how many strings are still connected to your fingers. And the truth? Neither do you. Because the real chaos is no longer in your control. It's alive now. You created something that no longer needs direction, just observation, just fuel, and fuel. Oh, they keep supplying. With every attempt to rebuild, they reveal more flaws. With every new alliance, they expose another pressure point. You don't need to intervene. They're doing the work for you. What you started as revenge has become a living system of collapse. You lit the match. Now the fire spreads by instinct. And their biggest mistake, they keep trying to trace it back to you, as if you're a static villain with a known address. But you're not a man anymore. You're a myth, a ghost that becomes stronger with every whisper, every rumor, every failed attempt to move forward without acknowledging the architect of their downfall. They can't even trust apologies now, because every sorry sounds like a setup. Every olive branch looks poisoned. You've corrupted their trust like a virus corrupts code. And the irony, they still don't know who to fear more, you or each other. That's the power of a true villain, not in domination, but in unraveling, in letting the pieces fall where they may, knowing every piece carries your fingerprint. Every broken bond echoes your name. They call it karma. They call it consequence, but deep down, they know. It's you, not fate, not chance. You, You were never interested in revenge that ended in one moment. You wanted a legacy of fear, a presence that outlived your actions, and that's exactly what they're living in now. A future you designed while they were laughing at your silence. You are the code in their collapse, the reason they can't rebuild without breaking more. They study your past moves like scripture, now trying to predict the next phase. But this isn't a sequel. This is evolution. You're not coming back for a round 2. You've moved on to another level. While they choke on the ashes, you're already rewriting the wind. You've taught them that power isn't about dominance. It's about perception. You didn't become feared because you were violent. You became feared because they could never predict you. You were the contradiction to every equation they trusted. And now, they don't trust anything. Not their friends, not their instincts, not even themselves. That's your real revenge. You didn't destroy their world. You destroyed their ability to believe in it. And belief, once shattered, doesn't return. It decays. It corrupts. And it spreads like rust through everything they try to build. They walk slower now. Speak softer. Second-guess everything. Because maybe, just maybe, you're still 2 steps ahead. Maybe that deal they're about to sign is part of your next act. Maybe that new ally is already compromised. Maybe the trap hasn't sprung yet, but is waiting for the perfect click. That's the beauty of your method. It never ends. It loops. It haunts. It lingers in the background like an unsolved puzzle. And humans, oh, they're obsessed with closure. But you denied them that. You didn't leave a finale. You left a question. And questions don't die. They fester. They want to call you evil now, to make sense of their fear, to paint you as a cautionary tale. But even as they whisper their warnings, there's envy in their voices, because part of them wishes they had done what you did, that they had the spine to break the game instead of playing it. You didn't follow the rules. You rewrote them, and that terrifies them, because they realize now you were never in their world. They were in yours, and the exit is gone. Their biggest terror isn't that you hurt them. It's that you transformed them, turned lions into mice, turned empires into therapy sessions, turned pride into paranoia. They can't undo it. They can only live in the echo, and every echo is shaped like you. So they finally realized, you are the genius villain. But realization is not salvation. It's a sentence. And you're already somewhere else. Watching, waiting, smiling without lips, planning without paper. Because the next story won't need an introduction. It will begin where the last one ended. With the click of a door they thought was locked, slowly creaking open. And the chilling certainty that you never really left. You were the echo in the hallway, the fingerprint on the untouched glass, the cold breath on the back of their neck, in a windowless room. You weren't waiting to return. You were simply choosing the perfect moment to remind them that there is no after you. There is only the aftershock. They thought they'd mapped the limits of your wrath. They were wrong. What they saw was your patience, not absence, not forgiveness. You didn't vanish. You blended. You embedded yourself into the very framework of their expectations. You studied their new masks, their recycled alliances, their desperate attempts to mimic peace. And it was almost pitiful, watching them decorate their ruins with ribbons of denial, like children painting smiles on broken toys. But you don't play with toys. You study the clockwork, and when you're done, you leave it ticking, just fast enough to explode when they think they've fixed it. See, destruction was never Your final act. It was your language. You don't erase. You rewrite. You don't kill kings. You corrupt their thrones until the crown poisons the skull beneath it. They assumed you'd crave closure, that you were seeking justice. But justice? No, you were after something purer. Recognition, not in applause, not in headlines, but in their sleepless eyes, in the way their hands tremble before every major decision. You became their hidden variable, the shadow they can't factor out, the dread that rewrites their logic. That's legacy, not a name carved in stone, but a presence etched in behavior. You didn't win by force. You won by infection. They tried to remove you by forgetting you, but forgetting you is like holding your breath underwater. It's not sustainable. And when they gasped again, oh, they inhaled you. And now you're in their lungs, their bloodstream. You are the unseen consequence in every action, the what if they can't ignore. You taught them that real villains don't threaten. They simply exist. You don't scream. You linger, and in that silence, they write entire horror stories starring your absence. What they don't understand is that you never hated them. Hatred requires too much emotion. You weren't driven by pain. You were sculpted by it, molded into something colder than revenge, sharper than rage, something beyond empathy or malice. You became inevitable. Their betrayal was just the chisel, their lies, the hammer, and with each strike, they carved away your limits. They gave birth to something they can't negotiate with, something that doesn't want closure, just continuity, because now you don't seek to end the game. You seek to own it, and ownership requires no crown, no throne. You've outgrown symbolism. You no longer need the world to know your face. You've made them your messengers. Every time they warn someone to be careful who you cross, they whisper your gospel. Every time they tell a cautionary tale, your silhouette is the monster in the fog. And the punchline? You never raised your voice, never showed your hand. Because you didn't come to play the game, you reprogrammed it. Now every player moves with hesitation. Every choice is a coin flip, haunted by your laughter, not heard, but felt. They still search for signs that it's over, but endings are for stories. And you became mythology. You're not the villain in their past. You're the curse in their bloodline. They'll pass your story down like a virus. And the new generation, they'll inherit your silhouette before they ever see your name. Because fear doesn't need a face, just a rhythm, a pattern, a legend that never dies because it was never real to begin with. You are that legend, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that evolves, the kind that waits. And wait, you do. Not out of necessity, but out of pleasure. Because watching them rebuild with trembling hands, that's the art. Watching them form new coalitions, only for old fears to infect the seams, that's the echo. You became their gravitational center. Even when you do nothing, their orbit bends toward your influence. You don't need to act. Their fear does the work. That's the beauty of trauma. It's a self-replicating mechanism. You planted it once. Now it blooms forever. They tried to recreate you, to build copies, counter-strategies, personas forged from your blueprints. But they misunderstood. You weren't built. You were born in fire, betrayal, and the absence of mercy. They thought you had a formula, but you were never a formula. You were the error in the code, the variable that makes math cry. They can't replicate what they can't understand. So they flail, they stumble, they imitate your wrath, your silence, your tactics. But they forget your most powerful weapon, clarity. You don't just act, you know. You don't guess outcomes, you ensure them. And now comes the part they dread most. The part where you don't strike, where you vanish again. Not into shadows, but into their expectation. Because sometimes, the absence of a storm is worse than its arrival. Every quiet moment is a loaded chamber. Every celebration is a funeral in disguise. You've taught them that peace is a mirage, that comfort is the most dangerous bait. They can't rest, because rest requires trust. And they gave up their right to trust the moment they thought they could fool you. They thought betrayal was an action, but betrayal is a mirror. And when you held it up to their faces, they saw not just their lies, but your reflection behind their eyes. You became part of their conscience, not a voice but a silence, the kind that stares back, the kind that remembers. Because you forget nothing, you forgive nothing, you archive everything. Your mind is a museum of moments they thought they buried, but you display them, curated, preserved, weaponized. And when the time is right, you unlock the exhibit. You let them think you've moved on, that you've found peace. But peace is a leash, and you chewed through it long ago. You're not interested in healing. You're interested in balance. And their scales are still bleeding. You can feel it, the imbalance, the weight they tried to shift with lies and laughter. It never settled, it just spread. And now it hangs in the air like humidity before a hurricane. They can feel it too, that itch in the soul, that unease that has no name but yours. They start their days wondering if today's the day, if today's the callback, the twist, the curtain pull. They don't say it out loud, but it lives in every overlong pause, every glance over the shoulder. You're the punctuation in their silence. And the cruelest part, you might never come back, because you don't need to. They've already become monuments to your memory. Their fear maintains your presence better than any action could. You've done what few have ever achieved. You didn't just punish them. You redefined them. You reshaped their instincts. You turned them into cautious, diluted versions of themselves. And that is the final act. Not revenge, not ruin, reduction. You didn't destroy their empire. You hollowed it. You left the walls intact so the world wouldn't notice. But inside, nothing remains. Just echoes of a past they can't return to, and the chilling knowledge that you hold the map forward, and you've chosen to burn it.